New York City, 1860. To the outside world, this was a metropolis exploding with unstoppable wealth. Stroll down Broadway, and you'd hear the sharp clatter of polished carriage horses, see the wives of industrial giants like the Astors and Vanderbilts wrapped in imported French silk. This was the early Gilded Age, the moment America began presenting itself as a rising global superpower. But turn a corner and walk barely 15 minutes south, and everything changed. Marble facades gave way to rotting timber. Paved streets dissolved into a black, sticky mire. The scent of perfume vanished, replaced by stagnant water, coal soot, and decay. Welcome to 5 Points, widely called the most dangerous square mile on the planet. Before we step into the mud, tell me where you're watching from. Drop your city and country in the comments. It's incredible to see how far these stories travel. Now watch your footing. Why was this place so nightmarish? Because geologically, it was never meant to exist. The land had once been a clear freshwater lake, known as Collect Pond. As Manhattan expanded, city leaders made a disastrous decision. They drained the lake and filled it with garbage, animal carcasses, and loose soil to create buildable land. A neighborhood rose on top of unstable landfill. By 1860, the ground itself was decomposing beneath people's feet. At the center of this misery stood a structure that became infamous, the Old Brewery. Originally built as a beer factory, it transformed into a human hive. More than 1,000 men, women, and children crammed inside the same crumbling building. For nearly 2 decades, police officers refused to enter after dark. With shattered windows stuffed with rags, it towered over the intersection like a fortress of despair. Inside was a maze of filth. Deep in its core were chambers known as the Den of Thieves, windowless, lightless, airless. Imagine spending your entire existence in total darkness. Some children born there didn't see sunlight for years. In one infamous room, called the Cave, 20 families shared a single straw-covered floor. Violence in those corridors wasn't shocking. It was routine, and stepping outside offered no comfort. In 1860, there was no sanitation system. The solution to waste? Pigs. Thousands of wild hogs roamed New York streets, devouring garbage and human refuse tossed from upper windows. They were the city's unofficial cleaners. Children were known to ride them through knee-deep sludge. Fine boots would be destroyed within minutes by the mix of mud and manure. Working beside the pigs were rag pickers, the poorest of the poor. Armed with iron hooks, they scavenged through muck for bones, glass, scraps of cloth, anything worth a few cents. 14 hours of back-breaking labor might earn just enough for stale bread and a patch of floor to sleep on. And those bones? They ended up in glue factories. Rotting carcasses were boiled down to make adhesive. The stench was described as a physical assault. A thick yellow haze of fat and coal smoke hovered constantly over the neighborhood, seeping into the lungs of everyone who lived there. But 5 Points was not only suffering, because beneath the rot, something revolutionary was being born. Hidden in smoky dance halls like Almack's, Irish immigrants and African Americans gathered together, something forbidden in most of the country. In those dim cellars, Irish jigs blended with African rhythms, giving birth to an entirely new form of expression, tap dancing. From misery came rhythm. From chaos came culture. If you sought darker entertainment, you visited Kit Burns Sportsman's Hall. In the center of the bar stood a wooden pit. Handlers dumped sacks filled with live rats into the ring and wagered on how quickly a terrier could kill them. The floor was slick with blood, the air choked with tobacco smoke and cheap gin. It was savage amusement for a brutal reality, men cheering death to momentarily escape their own. In a city where law meant little, protection came from belonging. Gangs ruled the streets, the dead rabbits, the plug uglies, the roach guards. These were not petty criminals. They were organized armies. In July 1857, a massive street war raged for 2 days. Bricks, stones, and iron bars became weapons. Police stood helpless as neighborhoods tore each other apart. This was more than crime. It was urban warfare. Yet danger didn't stop at the street. It was in your cup. Much of New York's milk came from so-called swill dairies. Cows were kept in filthy basements, fed leftover whiskey mash, never seeing daylight. Diseased and decaying, they produced gray, contaminated milk. To make it appear fresh, sellers mixed in chalk, plaster, and eggs. The result poisoned thousands. In 1 year alone, an estimated 8,000 infants in Manhattan died from tainted milk. Among the most tragic victims were the street Arabs, thousands of homeless children. By day, they sold newspapers and shine shoes. By night, they huddled over steam grates to avoid freezing. 5 cents might buy a bed and a shelter. Without it, an alley became home. In this world, a 7-year-old had to be a businessman just to survive until morning. To combat rising crime, the NYPD turned to a new invention, photography. They created the Rogues Gallery, photographing suspects and pinning their images to station walls, an early attempt to bring order to the chaos. Detectives studied the faces, memorizing the eyes of thieves and killers. Then came July 1863. The Civil War draft ignited the largest urban insurrection in American history. For 4 days, New York burned. Mobs targeted the wealthy and infamously destroyed the colored orphan asylum. The violence escalated so severely that Union soldiers marched directly from the Battle of Gettysburg in Manhattan, firing artillery into crowds to restore control. Eventually, city leaders decided 5 points was a disease that had to be cut out. In the late 19th century, reformer Jacob Riis exposed the horror through journalism and photography, shaming the city into action. Buildings were demolished. The Old Brewery was razed. The sinking houses and garage shops vanished. Today, Columbus Park in Chinatown stands above what was once 5 points. The mud has been paved over. The stench is gone, but the struggle, the resilience, the music, the pain, they remain woven into the DNA of New York City. If this story surprised you, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Would you have survived 5 points in 1860? Subscribe for more forgotten histories brought back to life. And don't forget to like the video if you want to see more stories that history tried to bury.